Daddy and I spoke last night. We had a conversation, and we both decided from now on, we go everywhere together.
I have to tell you, I feel like I was so excited to that you said yes, because I feel like we have a lot in common, even though very different sides of the industry, right? I mean, because in the whole boys club sports world, it's the same. The financial industry that you've come up in and dominated and made history in. I mean, is it still fair to say boys club and you still got to fight?
You know, it is. And I think it's gotten better. And now there are a lot of women, not just on Wall Street doing business, but also women reporters on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So it's gotten much better. But I still think Wall Street is a boys club, I must say. But it's nice to walk around the floor today and see all of those women. It was very different when I did so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's, I mean, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
History maker. I didn't even fully introduce you, but everybody knows Maria Bartiromo. You were in 1995 the first, not just woman, the first person, right, to report live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes, it's true.
In 95, the first person. Like, did you know that at the time?
Yes,
Yes.
no one had done it. And we were starting a new show called Squawk Box on CNBC.
Sure.
And we wanted to be different and, have cameras right there and, shooting as things were happening. And so we had to talk Dick Grasso into it, the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. It coincided with the time that he really wanted to demystify things. So it worked out. But when I first got down there, it was tough because a lot of people did not want me down there.
Yeah.
And, half of it was this new novel thing that I was in the middle of the floor and they were just bumping into me because they had to get to their post to do their business. And then another half of it was, let's show this little girl, who's boss.
Yeah. So you knew, obviously, yes, that you're making history. Did you feel it leading up to it, feel that pressure? And then, like you said, when you first started?
Well, it was definitely a lot of pressure. I felt the pressure. I don't know that I understood the magnitude of being the first person to broadcast from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and being a person that younger women would look up to and say, I think I want to get in the business because I'm watching her and sort of, waking up with her every morning, which I'm so proud of. I feel so good about that. And I don't think that I understood the magnitude of what we were doing because—
Maybe that's good.
Yeah, it was good. You're right. Yeah. Because in retrospect, I think one of the most important things that we were able to do, in addition to being this person on the floor of the exchange, was to break open the morning call. So at that time, research was really highly paid for, the Goldman Sachs, the Merrill Lynch's, and the big white shoe Wall Street firms would have research that they would sell to their biggest clients. And people would pay huge amounts of money to know that, for example, Morgan Stanley was upgrading Apple, or, Goldman Sachs was downgrading IBM. That was market moving information.
Yeah.
And so to get those reports and break open that morning call at 7 a.m., which was what I set out to do, because I would get in every morning and call the trading desks and say, what are you telling clients? What are you telling clients? To get that information at 7 a.m. and not allow those firms to just give that info to the biggest, institutions that were paying for that research, that put the individual investor on the level playing field as the institutions before the stock got away from it. So in other words, like if a major firm is downgrading IBM, it might trade down $5, right? If someone's upgrading Apple, it might trade up $10. Whatever it is, by the time the individual found out about those things, the stock had already moved.
Yeah.
But to get that information out when the institutions were getting it at 7 a.m. was a big deal. So in retrospect, what we were actually doing was a big deal, and I didn't understand the magnitude of it at the time, probably.
How much pushback was there that I'm sure you heard about things, but that you physically, people saying it to your face, even, maybe bosses or coworkers?
Yeah, I mean, there was pushback on all different levels. I mean, first of all, it was really hard to break into those firms to get their research. Research was coveted, and they were not going to tell me what they were doing before they gave it to their major clients. So I had to get sources on the desks and try to figure out what they were doing. So there was that kind of pushback. And then there was pushback from my colleagues in the industry, where I remember I had started my career at CNN, and I was a producer at CNN, and then I was at CNBC, but when we went down on the floor, a lot of people said to me, Maria, what are they doing to you? You look crazy down there. People are bumping into you. You can't even see you. You're like this little ant in the wide shot.
I remember.
Yeah, exactly. So why would they do that to you? And then sure enough, CNN called and said, we want to be down there. Can you give us a spot? And then Bloomberg, and then, everybody else followed suit. So sure, there was a lot of pushback.
And ugly at times. I heard you on another show talking about the bullying that you endured. And at first it's like, well, okay, bullied, we've been there. Locker rooms and the guys make you feel a little uncomfortable. Executives, no C-suite access. This was another level that you endured for how many years? And can you just explain who it was and how long it went on? Because it was insane.
It was a few years, and these people were much older than I was, and, were like staples on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So one guy, I think the story that you're referring to was a gentleman named Mike Robbins. And Mike Robbins was on the board of the New York Stock Exchange. And he did not like the fact that Dick Grasso, the chairman, allowed us to broadcast from the floor. And one day I found out that my boss's boss was coming down to the exchange, Jack Welch. He died, but he was the chairman and CEO of GE, which owned CNBC. And I knew that when he came down to the floor, I was going to be the one to show him around and take him to the GE Post. He loved GE and loved GE stock. He knew everything about GE and GE stock. And I thought, well, this is great because the specialist in GE just gave me this great rundown of what goes on in GE stock, who the big buyers are, everything that's, where the volume is. And I thought, Jack is going to eat this stuff up. So I went over to the specialist one day when it looked really quiet. And I said to him, George, because I wanted to tell him that Jack was coming, and would it be okay for me to bring Jack over? And Mike Robbins was in the crowd, and he saw me, and I was 25, 26. He must have been, 60. And he said to me, yelled, he said, go away, run along. This is not for your little TV show. And I just remained for a moment. I had real, like cranks in my stomach. I just felt like, all these people are watching me. So I just, turned around and I said, don't speak to me that way. And then I actually did run along. I left. But then I came back with Jack. I had spoken with George, the specialist. He assured me not to worry about Mike Robbins. Then I called Dick Grasso. I said, Dick, it's really not right that this guy humiliates me on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And he said, come up to my office after the close. I sat there knee to knee with Mike Robbins, and he used the whole meeting to just really belittle me, saying, look, I haven't seen your little TV show, but don't come around me, don't come near me. But it ended okay, because for years I was afraid to pass Mike Robbins. It was during the dot-com boom and then the dot-com bust. I always would go around the building, and it was big, 5 rooms. The exchange was really big. But in order to get to my spot, I did not want to pass Mike Robbins because he always had a belittling comment, and I was embarrassed. I felt stupid in front of all these guys. And so I said, let me go around so that Mike doesn't see me and I don't have to walk into him. And then one day, finally, the market is selling off. The dot-com boom is a massive bust. Everyone's losing money. I have to get to my shot immediately. I cannot walk around the building. I have to go straight because I'm late. And sure enough, I passed him and he said to me, save your money. Save your money. You won't amount to anything. You better save your money now. So I was so mad. I turned around and I said, no, you save your money. And then I walked away and I was like, great, I got back at Mike Robbins. Long story short, a few years pass. Finally, Mike Robbins leaves the floor, and I'm thrilled that he's off my back because he was not only on the floor of the exchange, but he was on the board of the New York Stock Exchange. So everybody was afraid of him.
Of course.
So if I'm talking to any other trader and he's giving me information, well, he got his head handed to him later for talking to me. Years passed. I was invited to a dinner with another source of mine. We went to Daniel Restaurant, beautiful upscale restaurant for this guy's retirement at Goldman Sachs. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'll make new sources. I'll meet everybody from Goldman. I'm going to go to this dinner. I go to the dinner. Sure enough, Mike Robbins walks in. I say, oh my God, I have to get out of here. I cannot take this guy yelling at me in front of all of Goldman Sachs. So I start backpedaling out of it to leave. Taps me on the shoulder. Maria, it's Mike Robbins. And I said, oh, hello. And he said, I just want you to know, I'm sorry for harassing you all those years. I want to shake your hand. I haven't seen your little TV show, but I read your column in Business Week. Exactly. I said, okay, it's okay, Mike. And, bygones be bygones. But it was that kind of intimidation early on that people don't, understand. Like there was another guy, Selden Clark, who was nuts, and he rammed his, they carry around these metal machines so that they could put the trades in. He rammed it in my back while I was on air one day. He didn't like what I said. I was on air. I was like, ah. So I had to go to medical, and then he got suspended. I mean, there were just all of these things where they were uncomfortable with a reporter, a woman being on the floor in their face. But the whole world was changing. 100 million Americans were invested, and they deserve to know more information than just what happens at the open and the close. So I pursued it, and I had to have tough elbows, and I'm proud of it.
Hell yeah, you're proud of it. I hope so. And I know that there's a lot of women and men, but women like me just in the broadcast industry watching. And to know that story, the backstory, that's why I think it's so important, right? For people to understand, yes, you are the person at the top of this industry. And there's no one else that's a household name. There's no one. But you created it. You were given nothing. Like you had to go create it and then stand firm when those people made it very clear that you weren't welcome. Where does that come from? Where does that toughness come from where you're like, screw you, Mike, I'm staying?
I think my mother, and also growing up in Brooklyn. I mean, growing up in Brooklyn was a little rough and tumble. We had our house on the block and we had our own little cocoon on the block, but you were very close to New York City. It's, Brooklyn, big city. And my mom has always been an incredibly hard worker and tough. She has her principles and her values, and she sticks to them.
Yeah.
And that's how I am too. And I always think about, like in modern day, with all the politics and the hate underway, I think to myself, you know what? I fought back those guys on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I'm not going to let you, tell me what I should be believing. These are my principles and my values, and I will have that be my North Star. And, having the conviction and a North Star in and of itself is really important.
Sure. Where does the interest in finances come? Because I have to be honest with you. I'm getting over my fear of it. Like, it's super intimidating to me. It always has been. And then, I didn't come from my dad's a military officer, and it was an incredible upbringing, but money, that's the opposite of having money, right? No one's going in the military to get rich, so nothing. So I just didn't understand it. And then started the career and had 3 kids in less than 4 years while I'm on TV, chaos. And it was like, here, to my husband, ex-husband, like, you do it. I just left it. And then all of a sudden you're single.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure it out at 45, 50. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It is intimidating, I think, for so many people. I asked a question and then I added 60 seconds of my own story. Sorry. But like that, I mean that. There's always been a fear, I think, for so many people in this part of it. Why is that? And where did yours come from?
I think it's because it's something that is not second nature to women. It's not what we gravitate toward. But one of my most important and most telling moments for me in my career was when 9/11 happened. And then
Which is your birthday.
It is my birthday. It is. Oh. My husband says, oh, what are we doing for your birthday? The International Day of Sadness. And I was like,
gosh.
It's yes. It stinks. It was my birthday first, so I have to say that, there was one good thing that happened on that day, my birthday.
Yes, but we get to still celebrate that no matter what.
I was down on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange on that dreadful day, and I watched the second plane go into the second tower, and it was just devastating staying there all day and then working there for the months that followed. But during that time frame, I did a story on the widows who lost not just their loves of their lives, their husband, the father of their children, but the money manager in the family. And so it was at that time when I realized so many women make this mistake of, depending on somebody else to make the financial decisions, to understand the overall financial backdrop. It's not good.
No.
And it's really important to take away all of the fear and not think that this is, it's not brain surgery. I did not come from a big business family. I mean, first of all, your dad, thank you to your father for his incredible service to our great country.
Thank you. I'll tell him.
My family is also a military family, and I'm deeply, deeply proud of my uncles and my dad and my grandfathers for their service that they've given to our country. But, I think that women need to understand that at the end of the day, they must understand the backdrop of the finances of the family.
Yes.
The money coming in and the money needing to go out. Without a handle on that, it's really difficult to put a path to the future together. So I think that was one of the first times that I recognized how, unprepared so many women are.
Yes.
And these women were devastated. Thank God there were so many good Samaritans out there that helped them pay their mortgage, that helped them when they lost their husbands, because they were young families, they were raising kids, and they just lost everything.
Prices are up, quality is not, and there are more imports than ever. So it's time to be smart, just like me, obviously, and get your meat from Good Ranchers. Who's Good Ranchers? Well, let me tell you, GoodRanchers.com is the #1 place to get 100% American meat this summer. So celebrate the sweet taste of freedom with savory meats conveniently delivered right to your door. And they're all raised and made right here in the good old USA. No matter what the occasion, Good Ranchers has you covered. In fact, right now, you can actually save on Good Ranchers meat like never before. Subscribe to any Good Ranchers box now and get $100 off, plus free American Wagyu burgers for a year. So it's more than just a great deal. It's also, get this, it's a chance to support American family farms and enjoy the highest quality American meat. All you have to do to claim the offer is go to GoodRanchers.com and subscribe to any of their custom curated boxes filled with 100% American beef, chicken, pork, or wild-caught seafood. Pick your box. Use my code SAGE at GoodRanchers.com to claim your $100 off and free Wagyu burgers for a year. This is the time to subscribe and leave that low-quality imported meat at the grocery store. Leave it behind. If you needed any other reason to support Good Ranchers, they're not only amazing partners of this show, but they support the paralyzed veterans of America, too. Every single order saves American farms and supports American veterans. So change the way you buy meat today at GoodRanchers.com with my code SAGE to claim your $100 off, plus those free American Wagyu burgers for an entire year. Make the summer unforgettable with GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered. Was that your idea?
Yeah, the 9/11 widows. Yes, it was.
Yeah. We producers throwing story ideas, but I figured that was yours. And again, as a woman, I can't imagine that. That's one of the things that you don't think about, as a viewer, or just from, Kansas watching with what happened in the aftermath of 9/11. That's crucial because they're trying to just be in their emotions, and they have children or whatever it is. You got enough to deal with, much less that.
Exactly.
Oh.
That is exactly it.
Yeah.
You're in mourning, you're so upset, you just lost your partner, and then you realize, oh, wait, what do I owe now? Who do I have to pay? What are the bills? No clue.
Don't even know the bills. Like I didn't. And then it's embarrassing.
Right.
I found it very embarrassing.
It is.
That I allowed that to happen.
It feels embarrassing, but it's really not embarrassing. But you're right. When you actually come out of it and say, how did I not know that stuff? It does feel embarrassing.
It does. Because I have the ability, I have the space in my brain, barely, to be able to begin to comprehend. But I ran away from it.
You left it to your partner.
I did.
That wasn't your thing.
Yeah, we all have things and lanes and a lot going on, but better late than never. And then the lesson is what? Okay, I need to teach my kids, in particular my daughters, to not wait and not let others. It doesn't mean, these are team decisions when you're married, right? You're doing these things together, but to be able to have the comprehension on both sides, not just one side.
I think it's such a great point that you made, and that's what I learned from my mom. My mom was always working, and not only was she always working, she always had a plan. For example, every Christmas she would get us, I don't know if you remember these Christmas clubs, and it was a Christmas club that you got at the bank, and she would put every 2 weeks from her salary, her paycheck, into the Christmas club. And then at Christmas, she would give me a check for $1,000 or something,
yeah.
As a kid. And then I would use that money to buy everyone presents that I wanted. But the point is this was this all year long thing that she was putting money into. And, it just planted a seed for me, save, save, save. Same thing when I was 5 years old. I would say, Mom, the ice cream man is here. Can I get a cone from Mr. Softy? And she would say, sure, you can get it, but how will you pay for it? Did you put any change in the jar? And little by little, as a girl, I started saving money. These are the little lessons from my mom that have stayed with me and have really set the tone for me in terms of finances.
So that's where at least curiosity came from?
Curiosity, yes. I would also go with my dad on a Monday when he would do the books for his restaurant. He was a small business owner. He had a restaurant, the Rex Manor in Brooklyn. I was the co-check girl.
Until you got fired.
No, I got fired from Kleinfeld's wedding dress store.
Okay, everybody's been fired in their lives, and that's your one time.
The Rex is my dad's restaurant.
Okay, he can't really.
But my mom worked at OTB, so she was a teller at OTB. So she was always into betting and horse races, and she was always in the middle of the action in that regard. So she definitely planted that seed. After the Rex coat check job, I got a job at Kleinfeld's wedding dress store. This was Kleinfeld's wedding dress store was in my neighborhood in Brooklyn. It was a neighborhood job. I was the stock girl. So after brides would try on the big heavy dresses and the veils and the whole 9 yards, I would pick the dress up and bring them back to the stock room. And they were heavy dresses. It was an important job. Unfortunately, before I would bring them back to the stock room, I would try them on. And my boss kept walking in on me in wedding dress garb.
How old were you?
It must have been, I don't know, 14 or something. I was so young. And she walked in on me for the third time. And I had the dress, the shoe, the veil, and I was fixing the veil. And I was dreaming of my own white wedding that I wanted to have one day. And she said to me, Maria, take that off and go home immediately. You are fired. And I said, what? And I cried the whole way home.
Oh my gosh.
I cried the whole way home.
She had told you, and you could not help it.
I couldn't help it.
3 times.
3 times. 3 times. The third time, that was it.
What'd you tell Mom and Dad?
I came home crying, and I said, Mom, I got fired. I loved my job, and now I don't have it. And she said, well, the good news is you learned a lesson. I said, what? I didn't know what lesson she was referring to. She said, now you know when you get a job, you have to do your job. Do your job.
What a concept. You
that
actually
is
have
great.
to.
So that was really good because it was very early in my career and I could understand the importance of doing your job.
And accountability.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you, Kleinfeld's.
What? Yeah, really. Okay, fast forward to how many years? 99, I think I read, when you got married. What did the dress look like?
Oh,
was it similar at all to those styles you obsessed over?
Yeah, my mother-in-law was friends with this big designer, and he designed the dress, Arnold Scazzi, and it was beautiful. He passed away, but yes, it was big. A lot of tulle and a big veil. So I did have my white wedding that I had dreamt about as a girl.
Had the taste changed at all from age 14 to however old you were when you got married?
Well, I don't know, because I tried on a lot of different styles, remember? I tried them all on.
I'm picturing you with the veil on and her walking in. And you're like,
it was horrible.
But I get that. And I actually think it's such an interesting contrast, right? Because again, you're so ingrained in this tough man's world. This is what you went on to and are still in. But then come that wedding day, you had the tulle, you had the fancy, girly feel to your wedding.
Well, I am a girl's girl.
Yeah.
I am. I have to say. I like to feel good and have nice things, and I like the jewels and everything. So I am a girl's girl.
And I love that, to own that, right? But I think it's interesting, the balance, because we watch you on TV and it's like, get out of the way. So you have that yin and yang and that softness that balances the toughness.
Yeah, I don't think of myself as tough, but I don't like to be left hanging. And when I asked a question, I would like at least some effort to answer the question. And when people don't, I do, at a minimum, ask again. Is that that's diplomatic way to say it?
Yes, but that's the job of a journalist,
right?
Side note, I'm blown away, and it's definitely more since I left ESPN, which was in August of 23. So it's hard to believe it's almost a year. But being on the other side of interviews, not asking the questions, I've been blown away at how bad people are at interviewing. They don't ask a question, or it's a leading question, or it's a yes/no. I mean, that's one thing I learned through all those years is it's like, ask a question, not 2 or 3 at once, which I did about 5 minutes ago and thought to myself, that sucked, say, right? It's ingrained in us. But I'm, even at some of the top networks, I'm blown away at the lack of the basic journalism, which is ask a question. If they don't answer, there's a nice way. Maybe you rephrase it, depending on the vibe of the interview, It's like, okay, you just avoided that. Can you answer the question?
Yeah.
Right?
Get back to it.
I do you see that in the industry, or is that just me being picky?
No, I do. I think viewers keep me honest because when I don't do that, I hear it from viewers. So I try to, get to the things that people really want talked about. But it is amazing to me that there are so many issues that are so important to viewers, and yet it feels like the mainstream media is just talking about what they want to talk about.
10 times 1,000 these days, and then not even giving you the full facts. Because I graduated from college in 95, should have been 94, extended it a year. And it was a very different time. And we were fully reliant on face-to-face, knocking on doors. Sure, you had like the AP Newswire, but you couldn't Google something. Like you had to actually go do the work yourself. So when you were talking about describing what it was like when you're down there trying to get those reports from these companies, like you're in the trenches getting it so you can report back. Because the goal is to what? Give viewers the facts and then let them decide what to do with that, how to vote, whatever it might be, how to invest. I just see that as kind of a lost art, even in sports where it isn't life or death, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just that old man, get off my lawn vibe at this point in my career. But I do think that you are one that pushes, and we need that, So.
Yeah, I mean, in the last 10 years, I guess part of the issue, Donald Trump came on the scene and was polarizing to so many people that they went crazy. And I think that there's a small cabal who hate him so much and have convinced their constituents, media, academia, whoever else you talk, Hollywood, that, and I saw that as being incredible unfairness. And I called it out. And, that was one thing that I think the mainstream media that happened. Donald Trump happened to them, and they don't want to report on him fairly.
They refuse.
Yeah,
they refuse, and they get away with it. Yeah. I think that's the worst part, is when the bosses, the leadership, allows it, and it's intentional. It's so funny. I think I used to laugh at the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome, that people talked about. And I'm like, oh, this is real. People can't handle it.
And I wonder why. Yeah. I mean, I think it's because he exposes their corruption, some people's corruption. And he doesn't care about talking about it, and they see him as dangerous in that regard.
I remember in 2015, when he came on the scene, and it was like, wait, who's running? Apprentice dude is running for president. And then I lived in Arizona at the time. I was working in Los Angeles, but didn't want to live in LA with 3 teenagers. And so I just did the hop over like Thursdays to Sundays, sports time. And I remember the media just, this isn't going to happen in the polls and all of those things. And even the exit polls that weren't right. And I just never thought we'd get to that point where he would actually get to the election, much less win. I remember sitting on my couch, watching the results come in and just laughing, because it was a journalistic sense, part of me that was going, every one of you, like, so badly didn't want this to happen that you chose to only report this. And we haven't been the same since, from an industry perspective. Do you think there's a chance that we get back to that, where people can trust the media again? Because right now I feel like it's almost lost.
It's such an important question and a good question. I don't know. I mean, what happened to me was I have always been independent. I got to Fox, knew nothing about politics. I knew a little about policy because I was looking at it in the realm of growth, economic growth, and corporate profit growth, traveling the world looking for growth. And I basically tripped over the Russia collusion story was a lie. And I coming into Fox, coming into politics, like I said, I didn't understand the dirty political tricks that are played. I didn't understand the dirty tricks. So I get there and I start hearing about Trump colluded with Russia. And I thought, well, this is weird. I've been to Russia 5 times. I know that Russia has been undermining the West for years. I used to go cover the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and I interviewed Medvedev and went to Moscow plenty. And I thought, well, Donald Trump. I was skeptical from the beginning just
Yeah.
because of everything I knew about Russia, and I just didn't see it. And I knew who to trust. I had a great instinct. I knew who to trust in terms of Congress, and I got to start getting to know Devin Nunes, who was the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and John Ratcliffe, who was on the Judiciary Committee. And over time, they told me what happened. They said, Maria, this was made up from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And when I found that out, I was like, wow, this was really made up. And it's gone viral across the world. I've got to tell everybody I know. I've got to tell everybody I know what I found out. I've got to yell this from the rooftops.
Yes.
I thought, of course, we all agree on this. This is wrong. That doesn't seem right. This is unfair. That's not fair. I got to tell everybody. And that's what I did. And boy, did I get slammed. Wow, I had never faced anything like it. I couldn't believe it because I was telling the truth.
Yes.
Because I was telling it the way I saw it.
Based on facts.
The New York Times and the Washington Post wrote a story. They both wrote the same story headline. The headline was, "What Happened to Maria Bartiromo?"
Oh,
They
my
both
God.
wrote that story. And it was all based on that. How is it possible that she's even giving Trump a shot? How is it possible that she is ignoring the fact that he colluded with Russia? And I kept saying, this is what I know. This is what the documents show. This is what the chairman of the Intelligence Committee told me. This is what Judiciary has. Didn't matter to anyone. I got slammed. And it was amazing. It was amazing to me. Looking back at that moment is so extraordinary to me. It ripped the country apart.
Yep.
Ripped us apart. Because some of us said, I don't think it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And others said, well, you must be really stupid
Mhm.
because it is true.
Yeah.
And there's been no accountability for it. None. And of course it's going to happen over and over again. Of course they're going to say the laptop was misinformation. Of course they're going to say, he's a threat to democracy because they keep getting away with it. Just make up stuff.
Absolutely. There's no accountability. And so that's why, once again, there's no trust. And why would that change? Like, who's going to tell them to do better? The viewers, I guess. And you see some networks, and the ratings have certainly gone down, especially over the last few years when Trump wasn't in office, which is so interesting, right? But if there's no boss to say, hell no, this is factually incorrect for reporting lies or not reporting anything for such a massive story, be better or you're out of a job. They don't have to face that. So why would it change?
I think you just, though, hit on it. I mean, ultimately, we are judged by the metrics of our industry. And one of those metrics is ratings.
Yeah.
So you would think that just viewers' pushback, the ratings decline, would be enough for the bosses to say, well, wait a minute, we need more accountability, we need truth, we need to search for the truth. I don't know. I mean, I hope so. There's been such a breakdown of trust everywhere. But the media is something that is really terrible because we need that check and balance. And it's hard because today it's just go to your corner.
I don't think those ratings drops have affected MSNBC as far as the decisions they make. The numbers don't lie. CNN, look at that. I mean, and then the constant layoffs too, which is a direct impact from the ratings being down and advertisers not going there, not giving as much. And they still have decided to not report the facts.
Well, unfortunately, there's also another sort of influence there, and that is the activists. The activists literally go to advertisers and say, don't advertise because they said this or don't, and it just, it becomes crazy because you're getting it. You're trying to search for the truth, but you've got so many activists trying to shade the truth.
That makes me sick.
I mean, look what happened during COVID.
Exactly.
All the censorship during COVID. I mean, why couldn't we know that, sure, there will be side effects? Sure, if you have immunity, I mean, if you have had COVID, you have some immunity. Like, why couldn't we have known any of that?
Right.
All of that stuff was censored. And then we learned from the Twitter files that government, 10,000 people or something, in all these different agencies was working with these social media companies to shut down accounts. It's so wrong. And you would think that the media, particularly the mainstream media, would know that and say, I'm not in your party. I'm not, working for you.
I have to tell you that just the mention of COVID and how it was handled, like something happens in my soul whenever I hear it or talk about it because of how it affected all of us in so many ways. And I am a very forgiving, glass half full person. And I'm not with that. Because, and I wasn't even terribly affected compared to many others who lost family members. And again, not to minimize the legitimate cases. And there were certainly legitimate reasons for concern. But then when you go back and you read the facts and you learn about the facts, where is the accountability for Fauci right now, where he is out there pretty much admitting everything? I made up the 6-foot rule. Masks don't really work. All of these things that broke people, broke families. And I think I look at, as a mother of 3, how I saw it affect my kids and change my kids. So kids and the elderly who were alone. I kept thinking, by the grace of God, my parents are okay. They're 78 and 75 now, but cancer, and my dad, that affected his treatments with his chemotherapy.
Of course.
And I kept thinking, please get them through this, because if they are, locked up in a hospital or in a home, I'm going to be that person. I'll go to prison. Like, I'm not going to leave them alone. And I think that's where I don't want, this doesn't sound crazy, I don't want the anger to go away, because then we'll get soft again and allow it the next time. It's almost like how I felt about 9/11. I didn't want us to forget. We always say hashtag 9/11, never forget, because it's easy to move on when you're not directly affected. But we can't let our guard down, because we know that there are countries and people and regimes that hate us and are going to come again. I don't know, you lived it, you were here. I have this anger over what they chose to do with COVID, and zero accountability today.
And because there's no accountability, you don't trust them now.
I'm done.
On anything.
I'm done.
I know, me too, same. I mean, it's amazing. Why? And we know what Fauci was saying, and then he goes the other day and said, no, I never said that.
I know. Run the soundbite next to him, and he still denies it.
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck? I mean, I think it all comes down to dollars, control, and money. And then shouldn't it be public record to see how much all of those people made during this whole thing? How much were they getting paid by the pharmaceutical companies,
Yeah.
Isn't that public record in some way?
I think there was one, Fauci was asked about that, all the royalties that he got, right? And he said, I don't have to tell you that.
Yes.
That was his answer.
Right.
I don't have to tell you that. Really? That's your answer. So in other words, you were getting paid. I don't know the answer, because he didn't tell us the answer. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So
I pray about that. Like, I need to have peace about this. And I'm okay. It didn't even hurt us per se compared to others. And I think I'm sad. I'm sad because of the people being taken advantage of. And then, when do we ever trust again?
Yeah. The trust is a big deal. You're right. I don't know. I mean, someone once said to me, people will go back in the water when they know the shark is dead. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What is the shark being dead in this regard? What does that mean? I'm not sure.
Can I ask about your mom again? Because I love that she pushed you the way that she did. And yeah, you can go buy that ice cream. How are you going to pay for it? Go do it. Go actually do your job this time. Or no, what was it? You have a job, but then you have to actually do the job.
Yeah. That's your lesson.
Yeah.
My mom is wonderful. Unfortunately, I did lose my dad during COVID. He wasn't well. He was okay. He was struggling a bit, but COVID really put him over the edge. And my siblings decided that the best thing was to put him in an assisted living facility. And we did not want to separate them. So we put them both there. And I just couldn't do it after my dad died. I mean, I would go to visit my mom. It took me 2 hours to get there. It's in another state. And I would go there, be with her for 2 hours, and then get back in the car for another 2 hours, 6 hours, later. And I didn't have satisfaction seeing my mother. I felt that they were drugging her up. I think a lot of the goals, and this is not all of these places, some of them are very good, I think. Very good. You need to have your own doctor, I think, and not rely on the doctor who may or may not know your parents' background. That's the issue. Anyway, so when my mom was there and I had taken her, I kept going there, taking her for like 3 days, 4 days at a clip after my father passed. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have the infrastructure in place to move her in with me, because I needed a healthcare aide. I needed to figure out how I was going to help my mom and move her out of there. Finally, it was June 30th, 2 years ago. It was 2022. And I took her out for the July 4th weekend, and I looked back at her room, and I thought, we're not coming back here. I had found someone who I thought could help me, and she still works with me today. I love her. She's my mother's healthcare aide now. My mom lives with me, and I've completely stopped the decline that was actually happening. I took her to a great doctor. We got exactly what she needed, took her off all of those meds that she was on at that place.
How?
Because she didn't need those meds. She was misdiagnosed, and I knew she was misdiagnosed. Because she was acting so strange and like all stoned out every time I got there. And I was like, this is not my mom. She's strong like a rock, and she's not here. And one day she said to me, she said, Maria, I just want you to know whatever they're giving me, it's weakening me. And my heart sank. I said, oh, Mom, you're coming to my house. And so I set up what I needed to set up. I finally found great people who said that they would sleep over. Because I get up at in the morning, my morning show, I get up at 3:45. And so I have to leave. I can't leave her alone. So I needed someone to sleep over. Once I found the infrastructure, I moved her in, and it's been just wonderful. She's so great. She'll be 92 in November, and she's so strong. The other day I came home, she said to me, how was the show? Who was on it? And I thought, wow, she's so interested in everything still.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm picturing that moment when you looked back at her room and you just knew. You didn't know how you were going to do it, but you just knew.
And then I took a picture of her, and she was alone in this room, and I took it home, and I showed my husband. I said, John, this is how I left Mom. And he looked at it, and he said, I know. And I said, yeah, we have to move her in. And he said, I know we do. And he was so great. He was just such a champ about it. He moved his stuff out of our guest room. That was his office. He said, don't worry, I'll have the bedroom for my office. And we moved her in that room. And now she has her own little room. It's sweet. She's got her, everything she needs. And she's living, at the beach. And I'm so grateful. I really am so grateful to be with her now during this time.
Mm-hmm. And so you see her every day.
I do. I see her. Well, I'm in Manhattan a couple of days a week. But those other days I see her every day.
I think it's so... obviously, there's no better advocate for our parents than us, because it was reversed for all those years. It's something that I think all of us fear, right, was when we have to make those tough decisions. But what a blessing that you can do it, and that she's aware that her little girl is the one. Like, that gets me all time. Yeah. That's special. So have you seen that appreciation from her?
Yeah, she says, we always say we're best friends, and I play. She loves music. Music is her thing. So I've been learning every Jerry Vale song. I mean, Jerry Vale was her guy, and we listen to Jerry Vale radio, and she knows every word. Oh. And so it's so fantastic to see her remembering everything and knowing, that she's okay. Yeah. She's safe. She's strong, and she's safe. So
What's your hands-on involvement then, like when you are there? I mean, how much are you really?
Just spending time with her, and I'll sometimes, cook for her. But, I have the aides, so it's really enabled me to have all of these balls in the air. I have my work, and I come to the city, and I've got lots of meetings, and I'm on the air 6 days a week.
I know, it's nuts. So how much? It's 2 networks 6 days a week. Like, is it 2 networks?
Well, I'm on 7, but the Saturday show is taped.
Yes, you like to work.
Yeah.
I also think your husband, like, this is another reminder of when you have the right partner who is going to support you at that moment where it isn't convenient. Frankly, it's not convenient. It's not cheap. All the things, your life changes no matter how much you love that person that's there. But he welcomed her with open arms.
He did. He's a real family guy, and he was wonderful. I could never have done this without him. I mean, he really opened our home to her. So he loves her too, though. We're both so grateful that she lives with us. It's really an amazing thing. I never thought that this would be the case, but I'm so grateful to have her. I'm still getting over my dad leaving. And at one point she said, oh, it's typical dad checking out early. I couldn't believe she said that.
Oh my gosh.
She knows everything, and initially when she was in that place, we were thinking, well, I think she's losing her memory and something's going on. But it wasn't the case at all. She's okay.
Gosh. And the fact that you have weaned her off, if that's the right word, all the medication, like, that's incredible. Good for you.
What happened when I met this doctor, I said to her, look, Doc, we have a house that I'm going to move my mom in soon, but not now because this and that and this. And she said, Maria, just so you understand, because I had told her what my mom was taking. She said, if you don't move your mom in soon, by the time your house is ready, that whatever you're telling me, she will be dead. And I thought, what? She said, so if you're going to do it, you need to do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it in the next week. And that's what I did. Couldn't believe when she said that to me. So I think in some cases, not all, but in some cases, there are very good places that want our parents to pass peacefully. Mm-hmm. And that's the goal, pass peacefully. And that's okay, that's good. But my mom wasn't ready for that yet.
Yeah.
And I wasn't
ready for
it.
It.
So we walk now on the beach path. She sits there, she looks at the ocean. I'm grateful.
How long were your parents married?
65 years.
Oh my God.
2 weeks before 65, he passed.
65. What'd you learn from their marriage?
Oh my God. They were really best friends. I remember at one point my mom said to me, when they both realized they were getting older, she said, Daddy and I spoke last night. We had a conversation. We both decided from now on, we go everywhere together. Wherever he goes, I'm going. Wherever I go, he's going. I'm like, good, Mom, I'm glad you had that discussion. I mean, they relied on each other for everything. They were best friends. And, you know, my father was so ahead of his time. You know, he had this restaurant, the Rex Manor, and they used to have a night, Wednesday nights was Parents Without Partners night. And they had a band, and it was a social, and my mom would take the tickets. And she sat there taking the tickets. It was family business, filled with love. And, you know, I love live music. He always had live music every Wednesday night and every Saturday night. So, yeah, they built a life together. They built this restaurant together. They raised a family. Today, you know, we have so much help. Like I'm talking about a healthcare aid as if it's so easy. It's not, you know, cleaning people, like people have all this help all over. My mother had none of that. Your parents probably had none of that. No, but they did it, and they did it with a smile. They did everything. My mom always had 5 balls in the air. So I definitely get my drive and my determination from my parents.
I love that, though. We're just going to go everywhere together.
Isn't that so sweet?
Really, really sweet, yeah. And you just celebrated 25, right?
I did. 25 years went like this. We just celebrated our wedding anniversary.
Oh my gosh, what'd you do?
Well, we just went to dinner, but we planned a trip to Italy later this summer. We're going to celebrate.
Going. Yeah, everybody's going to Italy right now.
We're going to do that. I love Italy.
I mean, hi, your last name.
Yes, Bartiromo.
a little bit Italian, right?
Both. My parents are both Italian. My mother's family is from Sicily, and my father's family is from Naples.
Have you done? I'm sure you've been there before.
I have.
And
yes.
Are you guys going on like any specific part?
We're going to go to the Amalfi Coast.
I've never been there either, and I'm dying.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Stunning.
It's just, it'll be a real vacation, you know, like,
oh yeah.
We're taking a big trip.
When's the last time you did that?
Well, we did
a big one.
We did, well, we haven't really had a big one, but we did go to Italy last summer too, so
good.
I'm lucky. We went last year too.
I'm trying to plan a, Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, I love that idea.
I want to do it.
You should.
By myself. And just, I don't know exactly which countries, but I'm thinking Italy, just top to bottom, top all the way down to the boot. You know, my mother's family is from there. My grandmother was Filomena Lina di Pratola.
Oh, I love that name.
I know you look at me and think Italian. And my grandfather was Irish, William Edward O'Neill. So my mother is that. And I want to go so badly to go to the
now I know why you're
villages.
so beautiful.
Oh,
background.
Thank you. I want to go. As an Army kid, like, you know, I don't really have a home, and I create them everywhere I go, just like my mom did as military. And by the way, how about this? 23 years, my dad was in the Army, 19 different homes.
Wow.
And with no money, each house she made into a home, even if she knew we were only there for 10 months or a year. Wallpaper, paint, landscape.
How great is that?
Every ounce of it. So we as kids felt at home when we walked in, and because you don't have friends, you don't know the neighbors, you're scared. It's hard to go to a new school every couple of years. But she knew that if she got our bedrooms taken care of first, even before the kitchen, which that's strategically, if you are a good mover, you start with the kitchen. She started with our rooms, so we would have a nice, So I don't have like a home, but that my mother went and discovered, second and third cousins that she never knew existed on the cobblestone streets in Italy. I'm trying to remember which town.
Wow.
So I want to go discover that and find them. But I want to go by myself. And I'm single anyway. My kids are off. You know, I'm an empty nester this year. Like, oh no, take us. I'm like, nope.
I love
Go to
that
class.
idea. I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, and to do these things while we can. Who knows what happens? You know, honestly, I think about the security of our country. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I also don't know if God will leave me here for another day. So don't we have to go do those things?
Yeah,
you know?
You do.
Yeah. And I do think my mother would be proud if I'm on those cobblestone streets eating pasta with her second and third cousins.
I love that.
Right?
I took my mom to Italy to visit where my father's father grew up. We went to my grandfather, Maria Bartiromo's house and his block.
Name.
I know. He came to this country in 1906 and then went and served in World War I and then came back and built the Rex Manor.
Amazing. How was the food growing up?
Well, it was all Italian food all the time. You know, unfortunately, I had to break myself of the habit of bread, pizza, pasta.
I know,
all the time.
No such thing as gluten-free back then.
Yeah, that's right. That's
right.
No, but I was lucky because both my parents were great cooks. My father was a fantastic chef. My mom was also a great cook, so I learned a little.
Do you cook?
No, just a little. I
mean, when are you home?
Yeah,
you don't have the time.
I can't. I don't have the time, but sometimes I do on the weekends. I like to.
Yeah. You're an athlete. Are you still an athlete?
Well, I bike a lot. I bike, and I've been lifting weights recently. I feel like it's important.
It is, especially with us women.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing. And I do yoga. So no, I'm not really an athlete.
But you were. What was the nickname I read? Bullet?
Yeah. That was my
Maria,
nickname.
explain Bullet.
Bullet. Well, when I was growing up, they called me Bullet on the block because I was the fastest runner.
Bullet on the block.
Yeah,
Jenny
no,
on the
I was Bullet, on my block.
Oh, okay. I thought you were giving me the J-Lo.
No.
Jenny from the block.
No, I grew up, in Brooklyn, and I had all my friends on the block, and we would play manhunt, or we would play, running games, and I was always the fastest runner. They could never catch me.
Really?
Yeah. So one of my friends, Eddie, came up with the name Bullet, and that was my nickname, which I love.
I love it too. And actually, it's still fitting. That's what I'm gonna call you.
That's so cute.
Let me tell you about Bullet, not Maria. Let me tell you about Bullet.
It was a great upbringing.
Were you super competitive? Like I'm guessing.
Yes, I was always competitive. I just work hard, and I seek to win.
Oh, that's a big statement. From day one.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, even as a teenager, even as Bullet on the block?
I think so.
Yeah.
Wanted to be the fastest runner. I would outrun everyone. Yeah.
And now, business-wise?
Well, listen, it's hard work to stay on top, and it's what's required. I mean, it's required if you want to win and you want to continue on a pace. It requires hard work, concentration, determination, and that's what I've been doing.
You said it, on the top, like you are the top. When did you realize that you made it?
Well, when I was at CNBC, I was certainly getting more famous, and I felt like I had achieved some success that I hadn't expected.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that I always felt like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be number one in my field in that. And I didn't have that kind of vision. My vision was just near-term visions. I want to go on air.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have the best show. I want to have leading ratings. So it wasn't like I had this overall plan, but it came together one step at a time through hard work.
To what end now? Like you've done it all and you continue to do it 6-7 days a week. How long do you want to?
Well, I think what was really important during COVID was that we realized that we could do more and have a different schedule. And I have been enlightened by that, to know that I actually could focus a little more on myself in terms of, like I said, I'm lifting weights and I'm doing yoga and I'm biking all the time. When you're in it and you're, working 24/7, I certainly didn't give myself a lot of extra time for stuff. I didn't give my relationship a lot of time. I didn't give myself, caring for myself, the time. But I think now that I figured out that, oh, I could still work hard, do what I'm doing, love what I'm doing, but I also could do it sometimes from my home studio.
Yeah.
And I could exercise and care for myself and put more into this part of my life.
Yes.
So I think that's where I am right now. I mean, I'm not necessarily thinking like, oh, what's next? But I'm thinking it's nice to have a little more balance.
Yeah. Although that word, I struggle with the word balance, right?
And I never figured out balance.
Well, because that makes it sound like it's equal.
But it's not.
It never is.
No.
And once you figure this out, then that falls away, or something else comes around that's going to cause upheaval and the opposite of balance. But yeah, I mean, you have accomplished all of it and then some, to your point about not really having this list and this specific dream, right? What's one thing that you still have out there that you're like, I want to do that? Is there something?
I don't know. I don't have that in my head right now. I'm not sure. Otherwise, I would say it. But I feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy with myself. I'm leading a life of integrity. Yeah. I'm searching for the truth. I'm an earnest reporter. I'm an earnest journalist. I'm trying. I feel good about that.
And you're fearless.
You've got to be. And I'm not afraid. No.
But was there a moment where that switch flipped, right? Where you're like, because I told you earlier, I mean, I always had this fear of upsetting, disappointing, and not being liked. And now, there's a lot of freedom in letting go of all of that and knowing that you yourself are number one, doing your job with integrity, like you said, being the best journalist possible, and being a good human, like being kind to everybody, not just when the camera's on, you know?
That's right.
Oh, I actually don't think it's that hard. And I don't understand why.
And I never understood why anyone would give you a pat on the back for being nice. People would say to me, oh, you're so nice. You know, you treat the crew and this. I'm like, why are you thanking me for that? Like, wow, how skeptical and cynical have we become that that's actually something that's special?
Well,
but I
guess
guess
you do see other talent. There's enough stories out there of people who don't treat the crew and others right, which makes me angry. I'm like, no wonder we have a bad reputation because of you. You know what I mean? But I love actually that you don't have okay, this is next. There's something to be said for being content and being proud of where you are, and not like, I'm going to put my feet up. That's not who you are. But I feel like for so many years, it's like, okay, next, climb.
That's right.
It's okay to like breathe.
You're right. And that's exactly right.
Yes.
I'm doing things now that I love to do. I mean, I just did this special on Fox Nation called Underwriting the Enemy, and I'm really proud of it. I'm doing my daily show, Mornings with Maria, which is actually doing really well. And I tell my team all the time, guys, you're competing with Squawk Box. We launched that show when I was first there. You're beating them. I mean, we're winning every morning.
Amazing.
Amazing. And I say, take a bow. They're on the air 30 plus years.
Yes.
We're on the air 9 years. And you're winning. So, and we have the best team. Sunday Morning Futures, my program on Fox News. It's been, I'm so grateful to say, the #1 program on weekends on cable for most weekends. And it's something that the audience, it's a destination for them.
Yes.
And, you know, they look to me for truth. They would be so disappointed if I did not search for the truth. So I'm grateful for my North Star. I do have a North Star, and it's my principles. And that's why I wouldn't stop with the Russia collusion story. And to this day, it gets me so mad about the stuff that I had to endure, and I was actually right, and I was just telling the truth because of my principles and my value system. I couldn't say, oh yeah, maybe he colluded. Or I couldn't even do the story. I had to say, and we think that it's not true, because no one was. So I think having that North Star, that conviction for searching for the truth has worked for me.
Yeah.
That's who I want to be.
And that's who you are.
Right.
People who have never met you, never will, know that about you. And I love and that the special focused on China, right? I mean, we need that. It's uncomfortable.
That's right.
I don't want to know
and you
part of
lived it.
Yes, but we have to know that. But that, again, does take courage to go on that deep dive to fully explain what is going on in that relationship with China.
This is probably the biggest infiltration of America that anyone has ever seen by communist China. Communist China is conducting surveillance on American citizens. They're conducting intellectual property theft on American businesses, costing American business $600, $800 billion a year. They are conducting propaganda to create discontent among us, and it is working. It's such an incredible infiltration. And what the special is about, I go one step further because what the special is about is the Chinese companies that are traded here in America. So there are so many Chinese companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. And in 2013, the Obama administration they signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, like a contract with the Chinese government to allow thousands of Chinese companies to trade on our exchanges and not follow the standard accounting rules of every other public company.
What?
So they are traded on our exchanges, but they don't have to report earnings quarterly the way others do. They don't have to be transparent in terms of what the books show. So if you're invested in some of these companies, which of course are tied to the Chinese Communist Party, of course they're tied to the military because that's their number one priority, military. And if any company has data or anything that would help the military, you have to give it up. That's the law. But you don't even know if those companies are actually making money or if they are being subsidized by the CCP. So the whole point of the special is underwriting the enemy. Unwitting investors are, in fact, funding the expansion of America's number one adversary.
I'm disgusted.
It's a big deal.
And again, no one talks about it.
No
one
one's
will
talking
talk
about
it,
this.
and especially because of what happened in 2013 when you just explained that with Obama. And people need to get uncomfortable and take that deep dive and watch what you're doing. I think the coolest thing I've learned today is, yes, girly Maria Bartiromo, not just like that.
Thank you.
That you are taking care of yourself. Like, I think it's an example that so many of us women wait too long to do. Don't have time to wait for that. And the love of your parents that you have for mom and dad. And I love that your dad got to see you at the very, very top.
Me
I'm
too.
sure
Thank you for
so
saying
proud.
that, Sage. That's so sweet of you.
I'm sure.
You're right. At one point, my dad said, because, my father owned the restaurant and he had all these relationships with all the pork stores. Mm-hmm. So he would say to me, my guy in the pork store in Brooklyn wants your headshot. One day I went into a pork store and there my headshot is behind the register. And I thought, I am getting famous one pork store at a time. Thank you, Dad.
That's what your answer should have been earlier when I said, when did you know you made it? When you got on the wall of the pork store.
I should have said that. You're right.
Okay, so for future journalists who ask you that question, you need to have a picture of that. Is your picture still up on? I need a picture of the picture.
Yes, you're right. I'm going to go back.
Text me, please. Send me that picture. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for just being such a great example for so many of us.
Right back at you.